You are now listening to For All Nerds Show, a podcast about geek and pop culture from the perspective of people of color. For All Nerds is hosted by DJ Ben Amin and Tatiana Keene Jones. For All Nerds Show is a member of the Loudspeakers Network, where we always say rest in peace to our founder, Combat Jack.
For All Nerds Show is powered by our listeners. Everything we do, from our podcasts, live events, our website, are all independently funded. Please continue to support us through our Patreon page at patreon.com/forallnerds.
Welcome to the For All Nerds Show. And what's up, y'all, and welcome to a very special episode of the For All Nerds Show. The voice of the Urban Geek, the podcast where we discuss geek and pop culture from the perspective of people of color. You see all these colors shining right now. It's your boy, DJ Ben Amin, a.k.a. Howard University's own Ben Amin, DJ by night. Briss Blairmont, Halal Jordan, Cal L. Bundy, Black the King Kirby, Tan the Man Lee, Thou Pilgrim, Bidfetch, Lionel Richie, Ready Hater One, De La Troll here in the spaceship tonight.
Ready Hater One is always my favorite.
De La Troll as well, you know what I mean? That's what we're here for. It's a brand new year. Woo, welcome to 2024, and as always, I'm joined by...
Yes, welcome to 2024. This is Tatiana King, the Grand Duchess of Tech, also known as Doc Aki, Tesseract Thompson, Clan Destiny's Child, Miles Tales the Prowler, Scroll Obsidian, Mulatto Hightower, and the Ting of the North.
There you go, there you go, there you go. And yes, we are back. Thank you to everyone. You know, glad y'all made it. If you're watching this, obviously you did. Unless we got a lot of spirits and shit watching us as well. You know, welcome to the show. Thank you for peeping us on twitch.tv/forallnerds, on YouTube. Thank you for following us on all these different platforms so you can see our beautiful faces shining in the new year. Many things going on there. You know, we'll be DJing. I'll be DJing. You know, Tatiana might be DJing too soon. Who knows?
Hey, honestly.
You never know. You never know.
I got the equipment.
Yep. Make sure you follow me as well. Twitch.tv/DJ Ben Amin. We are here. It's For All Nerds. It's a new year. We got a lot of things to do. But right now, like I said before, this is a very special episode because we were privileged. Big shout outs to, you know, the big dogs over at Disney.
Big Mickey started acting right.
Yes, Big Mickey has been, Big Mickey's always acting right. Look, hey, I don't know
about that.
Look, I got no complaints over here. You know what I mean? I ain't trying to, you know, lose these front row seats, as they say. So, Big Mickey sent us the first 3 episodes of Echo, which will premiere for the first time ever on Disney Plus and Hulu at the same time, January 9th. All 5 episodes. It's a mini series. It's from Marvel's new series, which they are calling Marvel Spotlight, which is those who read comics is a series in Marvel where they spotlight certain characters, obviously. So this will be a spotlight where it's like in the MCU, but not where you need to catch up on everything or not so much related to the main storyline that's going on, which who the hell knows what is the main storyline right now in the MCU, you know.
Right. Well, who knows what it is. But I mean, it's very clearly posited directly within the timeline because from the very first episode, the pilot episode, they include Daredevil. Now, everyone's seen this. This is actually common knowledge right now.
Yep.
It includes Daredevil. You actually also see Hawkeye / Ronin. So it very clearly says, you know, while to your point, this is a spotlight, like this is kind of like its own standalone, which we, interesting enough, you and I have been talking about that, how we want to see more Disney Plus shows that can stand on its own and not have to be a commercial for something else, right? Which this is not. This is literally a story and an introduction of a upcoming anti-hero, I don't know, of
far.
Echo.
So far. I mean, dead ass, you know, Shorty's leaning.
I don't know.
Shorty's leaning. If you thought Luke Cage
kinda...
season 2 was leaning, Shorty is already like, nah, that's not good enough for me.
Which I like.
Let me be blatant about that. Yeah, that's all light. You know, that's real light what you're doing over there, Luke. Let me be real upfront about what I'm about.
Yeah, so the fact is, it is very clearly like, yo, this is canon. This is part of the timeline in some way, shape, or form. But to Ben's point, wherever the hell the timeline is right now, just in terms of like what's going on in the MCU. You know, there's a lot of things being juggled around for obvious reasons that we've talked about in our other episodes. If you actually go back at least 1 or 2 episodes, you'll see we had a big conversation about all the changes going on in the MCU. So make sure you listen to that.
Jonathan Majors got fired if you've been living under a big ass rock.
That. And if you've watched any of the recent films, particularly the Marvels, you've seen at the end of that and in the post-credit scene, you've seen that where they're going in terms of the introduction of X-Men and really kind of formally linking everybody up together. And then we're going to see more of that later in the future when we see Deadpool and Wolverine and all that.
I don't expect Echo to be on the next Avengers team.
No, I don't. But I don't.
Maybe the Thunderbolts.
Well, I don't know what's going on with them because Steven Yeun's not even in it no more.
Well, hey, there's space for a new character to be in it now.
So that's why we said we don't know what's going on in MCU, but things are going on.
Now there's room.
There's stuff happening. But as Ben said, this is Echo. We were privileged to see episodes 3 out of 5. So the first 3 episodes we synced.
Yep.
And we could tell you all about what we felt, what we thought about the characters, what we feel about the characterization of Echo herself and everything in between. I do want to say that I really appreciate it and love that this is very deeply rooted in Indigenous culture, specifically for this version of the character, the Choctaw Nation.
Yep.
And everyone who's involved in the cast and crew, generally everyone has some type of background or is culturally Indigenous. So, for example, like we have one of the directors, one of the main directors, Sydney Freeland. She's been a director and writer on Reservation Dogs. She was raised in Navajo Reservation in New Mexico. There's also another director, Catriona McKenzie, who is Indigenous Australian. So, like, you right away from the top, and then we've talked about this, like when we're talking about stories of the people themselves, like you from the very top, not just, you have the actors and stuff, but everyone who are making the decisions, the people who are writing, things like that, the people who have the understanding and the knowledge need to be involved. So right away, they're there.
Right away, they are there. And yeah, I'm very appreciative of that as well. Like you said, first of all, one thing I do want to make sure, we are going to have some spoilers in this review. We will be talking about pretty much everything that we've seen. We're not going to give away, I don't really think in the first 3 episodes there are any major reveals.
And that's probably why they let us see the first 3, because there's nothing that is expressed in the first 3 that is going to give away the huge story or whatever that big kick is at the end of episode 5, whatever that will be. Like this is all lead up.
Yeah.
And I think no matter what we say, you'll get a good sense of what the show is about, but we're not going to give away what that end of I don't know what that's called, but that power at the end. Like, I don't think we're going to give that away.
Oh, the cliffhanger at the end of episode 3?
If there's a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I don't really think of that as a cliffhanger. I don't
think there might be a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
something important's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh shit, I can't wait for 4, but at the same time, you knew this was coming. What happens at the end of episode 3? So it's not like, that was not a big cliffhanger at all. I think, and since we are getting in slight spoiler territory right here, I will say that I think the biggest spoiler-ish thing about this series is the fact that Echo does seem to have some sort of superpower. And it's not the superpower that we've seen her have before, if you're a comic reader, where she's like a Taskmaster character, where anything she sees, she can immediately echo. So when she sees Captain America throw his shield, she can throw a shield like Captain America. She can fight like Daredevil when she sees him fight. Things of that nature. That has not been what she's doing in this series. In this series, later on in the first 3 episodes, she starts developing some sort of superpower, which seems to be super strength at the beginning, maybe like, just superhuman physique in general.
I liken it to, and again, and this is also attached, and Ben will talk about this later, this is also attached to some cultural aspects of Choctaw Nation. But how they're displaying it reminded me, just to give you guys something simple, it reminded me of Avatar, where like you're tapping into the powers of your ancestors, essentially, right? So when you said super strength, yes, you can say she may have some aspects of super strength, but the way that they display it is like she's tapping into the powers of her lineage.
Yes.
So there is for example, there is a ancestor of hers that was basically like a dead shot, like can fucking shoot anything, have crazy aim, bullseye type shit, right?
Yep.
Like, so she utilizes that, right? Like somehow that connection comes up. It's like when you need it, you're able to tap into it and utilize it, and so on and so forth. So I think it's more like a mixture of that.
And in that way, I'm just realizing as you're saying that she's really living up to her name. She is an echo of her ancestors.
An echo of her ancestors. She's an echo of her past, which is a fire flip. I will say that. That's a crazy flip, because I expected the comic book version. That, even though I don't know a lot about Echo, I didn't realize and know. I thought from the books that she was like, if you pay Tekken, she's like a Mokujin type character, where that character can just once she sees your fighting style, she got that and she gonna flip it on you, right?
Yep.
Like they flip this now that we've seen what we've seen, and really is very clever and very cultural and also very respectful way that makes sense.
Very much so. No, I definitely, F with it. Something serious. I really like how she's bringing up all these aspects. Like, it seems like every episode we get to see a different one of her ancestors and how it can benefit her. Like you said, we see the dead shot. We see the strength. We see the strength is coming from all of our ancestors. So all of that is really dope. How they're using the Choctaw Nation itself is very fire to me. I love some of the references that we get to see in the episodes. Like, we see the characters in her past playing. Because there's a lot of, like, I'll say this. The first episode opens and I'm like, am I watching Lost over here? Because it definitely gave me feelings of Lost.
Yeah, it was like, what's going on?
If you've seen the ending, especially of Lost, there's like a lot of pools of water and mysticism involved. And so I'm like, damn, this feels like Lost. And so I love that how it took me somewhere I wasn't expecting and then brought it right back to the street echo that we know. So I was loving all of that. I will get to all the Choctaw stuff in a second, but I do want to say, off the rip, I loved the use of Daredevil in this. And I think from what I've heard, that's pretty much the only scene that we're going to have of Daredevil in these fighters. Yeah, and I'm fine with that. But I love to see Daredevil actually be more like the Daredevil from the comics. Like, when my man jumped over that gate, I was like, yo, there we go. That's the Daredevil I know. Not the hallway fight and all that shit from the Netflix is classic, but it's still more street. It's still not like slightly superhuman, which is what Daredevil should be to me.
Yeah. I mean, I was getting good Netflix vibes. Like, the fact that, first of all, we're back to grounded characters. And by grounded, I mean characters that are not steeped in their own, I don't want to say being their gods, right? Like, they're not necessarily but we're going to see some from Echo, obviously, but most of these characters are just, quote, just humans, right? So, but they're superpowered in other ways. They're superpowered in less magical or mysticism type ways, with the exception of Echo. You see, as you mentioned, Daredevil, he's doing his capoeira type stuff, right? Like, he's actually doing his fighting styles, and it's more down to earth. What we saw in other Netflix series, when we saw with Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Punisher, and all this other stuff. So I was happy to see that, because it gave me more grittiness. It gave me more, okay, almost in a way believable, right? To see that type of thing. Like, okay, if this guy had this fit, like how he, just like when you saw the Netflix series, when Mans got hurt. Yes. Like, Mans was beat down, Mans was down bad, and he didn't just magically okay the next day. Like, he was fucked up for a while. And that's what I mean when I say it's more down to earth, it's more real. So you get to see a lot of that.
You get to see a lot of that, and it's still super heroic, because Echo
super heroic.
Echo definitely survives things that would do in a normal person with no problem.
But the ancestors.
There's also a lot of convenience,
ancestors.
There's a lot of convenience and luck to her surviving these 3 episodes that we've seen.
Yeah.
Because there was one moment where I'm like, wow, well, that's super convenient for it to be that part, of her body, and not another part, because otherwise she did, right then and there. But I do love, like, that first fight scene we were talking about where Daredevil busts in. Before that, we get this pretty much long one shot. There's definitely some cuts in it, but it was very well done. Just, people talk about this when they hear our reviews, how sometimes we're like, oh, this is too violent, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. I don't give a shit about it on this one. Like, this was the violent level that I needed so far. She's straight up breaking necks, snapping necks.
Yeah. I gotta be honest with you, it didn't feel, and maybe because I've seen so much hyper violence, this series, and I understand that that's part of the selling point too. They're saying, "Oh, it was the first MA series, a mature audience series." Blah blah blah. It wasn't that violent to me. Now, and then let me be clear.
I think we've seen a lot of violence.
I think, and I was going to say, I think it's because right now we're in the age of The Boys level of violence, of on-screen Invincible level of violence. Even being animated, the fact is that that's hyper Gen V. Like, to me, that is the epitome, and I'm sure it is worse, but I'm not here to have violence Olympics. I'm just saying from what I've seen, that's one of the worst levels of violence
The murder marathons.
So while violent things are happening in Echo, and yes, you've seen the blood splatter, you've seen niggas get snapped, like a fucking pair of uncooked spaghetti. I get it. I still it wasn't that bad. And again, relatively speaking, from what I've seen, it was violent, but it was violent than everything else on Disney Plus. But it wasn't like, oh my God, the man's eyeball got squeezed out his head or nothing like that. That's what I mean. Like, it's not a gore level of violence, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely not very gore. I mean, Echo being shot in the first.
There's blood, but it's not gory. But like for example, at the end of and that's one thing I loved about the first episode, because it carries off right where it left off on Hawkeye, and then you have imagery of stuff from Hawkeye, as he mentioned. Daredevil was there. You see her. Remember, she shot, it was implied that she shot Fisk, Kingpin, and you actually see it happening, but you don't see it happening. Like, you see her pull the trigger, but you don't see the bullet go through his eye and stuff pop out. No. Like you would see on The Boys, for example, right? Yes. You don't see that, and that's what I mean. Like, there's still implied violence as well.
You do hear that body thump. I wasn't sure. I think they gave us the body thump on Hawkeye.
I don't know if I heard the body thump. I just remember the shot.
Yeah, well, they gave you the body thump on here to make sure
Which is fine, but what is that? That's implied violence. You're not seeing all the gore to it. So maybe that's a better way for me to explain it. It's not gore violence. It's violence. It's regular violence. But it's not it's just not the stepped up level that you've been seeing in some other shows.
No, it's definitely highly violent though. For if you have young children, this is not the show.
This is not a child show.
No, not at all. Period. I will say that. But it's not something, due to the fact that I grew up seeing hyper violence, and throughout my life I've seen hyper violence. And there's something to be said for that, right? Because it's still, to me, it's interesting. Like, I've seen violence in real life. And when I see violence in real life, it affects me in a different way than anything I've ever seen on screen.
As it should. It affects me completely different.
Completely differently. And that's so interesting to me. Even like the other day, I turned on the NFL and this dude gets hit and they had to bring an ambulance out, and it was terrible. And I had to turn the game off right away. I'm like, I can't watch this. This is like ridiculous.
Because it's real life.
But you watch something like Game of Thrones where man's gets hand cut off and
man's get flayed and all that.
Hand cut off still fucked me up though. I cannot lie to this day. That imagery is something I did not need to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think that shielding of this isn't real. At the end of the day, you still may be into it, still may be a very good in-depth story, but you still know this isn't real. I'm going to put on I'm watching a show hat, right? Because you can turn it off. You can pause it. You can step away. Versus when stuff happens in real life, you said whether you're watching the NFL or you in the street and a car accident happens, you can't stop it. This is literally like, oh my God, you're in it or you're experiencing it. And I think that's what makes the difference, that the visceral tone of something happening in front of you in real life, that you have no control or can't necessarily stop it. Could you step away from the TV with the whole NFL thing? Yes, you could, but that doesn't make it not happen, right? Yeah. It's still happening. We know that these people in this show aren't actually flipped upside down, aren't actually being spaghettified or whatever, right? Like,
and therein lies the difference. And I think our brains can actually recognize that. But I also think there's something to be said for how much violence we consume, where our brains have to differentiate between these two.
Yeah, and what you were gonna kind of alluding to, the fact that being desensitized to violence, like for me to even say, "Oh, it's not that bad," I've been desensitized from a entertainment perspective of what I consider a lot versus not. So all that to say, no, your child should not be watching this.
Not at all. Not at all.
However, if you are afraid, like, oh, is it like gory, wild violence like that? No, it's not gory.
And I would say
if you watch Daredevil, you're going to be all right. If you watch any of the Netflix series, you're going to be all right.
And this might be problematic, but by like 10 or 11, I would have seen way worse than this in my life. So, yeah. Definitely. I was watching Die Hard and Commando and
Well, you was
etc.
growing up with like the shit that be happening in the 80s,
Yeah,
man. Like
man.
that shit was wild.
It was gangster. Yeah.
Fucking latchkey kids, man.
Yeah.
Just doing whatever the fuck.
You know, crack cocaine was out
Watching
on the streets.
anything.
Yeah, it was, you know, seen a lot, you know. So yeah.
Just some more setup for this. Like, this is the first MCU series that they say it's gonna follow the binge release model, so you're getting all the episodes at once.
Mm-hmm.
I have mentioned just from the top through the cast that it's filled with indigenous peoples, including one very particular show that a great deal of actors have been coming from. That show is one of our favorites, Reservation Dogs.
Let's stop right here. If you have not seen Reservation Dogs, it's on Hulu. So if you're watching this, you can watch it. Please, I implore you. It is literally... And since I'm caught up on The Bear, everybody's talking about The Bear, and The Bear is up there. But Reservation Dogs is still, hands down, one of the greatest shows and a perfect show. I still have 2 episodes left because it's so heartbreaking to me that this is the final season and that I won't get to be with these characters anymore. And I cannot think... It's like, you know, there's shows like Reservation Dogs, Andor, Atlanta, which are perfect. Like, Andor's only 1 season so far, so I don't know how they're going to do it the second. But, you know, Atlanta, Reservation Dogs, which to me are just perfect shows from beginning to end. And I have really, like, no notes other than y'all should watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please watch Reservation Dogs after you finish watching Echo and after you finish watching this review. Because you'll appreciate all these actors even more so once you see them in these different roles.
Yeah. So just to name a few, like you have Devery Jacobs, who plays Laura in Reservation Dogs. She's also in this show as Bonnie. My fave, Zahn McClarnon, zombie and everything, bro.
Yes.
So he's in this. He played Big. The Graham Greene, who played Maximus, he's in it. Like there's mad people from Reservation Dogs, and also even Sydney Freeland, one of the directors. Like she was a director and writer on Reservation Dogs. So you know. I love the fact that like that's kind of like a tight knit family too, right? Usually like, you have a family for this show that's coming over like, hey yo, we pulling everybody up with us. So
and Devery, who plays Bonnie, is one of my favorites from Reservation Dogs. Like she's such a beast on that show, and so I'm really glad to see her get another role where she can shine. I mean, I think all the main 4 cast of Reservation Dogs needs to get roles for the rest of their life. I'm hoping they do because they're all fucking amazing young actors. So I'm glad to see them. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as we continue on, just talk about Alakwa. Like Alakwa, I feel Alakwa Cox, who plays Echo, she's been killing this role since she appeared in Hawkeye. She is the first disabled actress to play a titular leading character in a Marvel Studio production. She was born deaf, just like Echo in the comics, and she has a prosthetic leg.
I mean, because I will say this, and I think we all said this. A lot of people said this. We were like, what the fuck? You know, Echo, for real? Like, even after watching Hawkeye, I was like, I don't even know
but it was one of them things like, why this character?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a headlining character. But then you can, like, again, we had that argument 20 years ago when you said with Iron Man, right?
Yep.
Like,
not a headlining character.
Even though I knew,
I
loved cartoons and stuff.
I mean, I grew up reading Iron Man comics when a lot of other people do. So Iron Man was one of my favorite characters. But
he was like what? He was fucking 8th string at that time, right?
Let's give him a little better. 3rd.
All right, 3rd string.
He was always an Avenger. second string. Because the number one. No, all right, Marvel number 1 string is X-Men, Spider-Man.
Okay.
So
I'm talking about at the time, 15 to 20 years ago. 3rd,
still
3rd string.
Third string.
Fine.
Don't disrespect the
point is, Mance wasn't a starting 5. Okay,
no, he ain't on this.
Not at all.
No, because there's a lot of X-Men.
And similarly, like you just wouldn't think of Echo, like you're just like, who's that? However, with the way she's characterized in this series, and again, you are getting an origin story here. You are getting the depths of the origin story. And then when you combine that with what we do know from the comic books, it's making sense. Remember when we first started this right now, talking to you guys right now, we said, hey, we don't know what's going on with the MCU, but X-Men. Echo is steeped like a motherfucker when it comes to X-Men, when it comes to Avengers, certain brand of Avengers. But the point is, she's connected to all these motherfuckers, right? So it's going to be, especially with where we think the MCU is going, these are easy connections to make while still at the same time being true and allowing her to grow within her own story.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point there, because I don't think this version is going to be the version where it's connected to the X-Men, where it's connected to the Avengers. I think this is Echo's own story, and where Echo goes from here in the future of the MCU will be interesting to see. But I do not think it will be the version that you see who becomes Thunderbird, who has the Phoenix Force, who has any of that. I don't think she's going to meet up with Wolverine anytime soon. None of that type of ish.
But it could happen.
It could. And that's
it could happen.
Either way.
And it gives it more credence, like when to your initial question of why Echo, there's more credence there too. Why Echo? It's like, oh, okay, this is making sense now.
And I think also the why Echo that we should say is because she is an indigenous character. I think
that's what you would like it to be.
Yeah,
you would like that to be the reason.
I think that was more the reason than even the X-Men connections, honestly.
Okay.
Because because you got to look at it like this, right? The show had to get a pitch, and the pitch seems to be, we gonna do a show about indigenous culture,
indigenous character,
and that was like, okay, let's do that. So that seems to have been Marvel's response. Not like we're gonna do a show that could have connections to the X-Men and all that, because it really doesn't so far what we've seen. So I think the pitch was, let's do an indigenous character, and Marvel went with that, and because that is something that even, I mean, I considered, but I was still on there like, yo, they're giving, Agatha Harkness, Echo, everybody gonna got, and now I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. They gave an indigenous character a show, and they wanted to do this special spotlight about this, and it's also, gives Vincent more time to play Kingpin, which is also amazing. And I think they really saw Alakwa. I think they really saw her
I hope
potential.
it's pronounced Alakwa. I apologize.
Yeah, I really apologize. So I really think they saw her potential. And even Devery, I saw her on Threads. She was talking about how happy she was to, that this show was coming out, and for how, much she's behind everything and the whole production behind it. So I think that was the main pitch.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be cynicism.
I feel you.
I just, it's a big corporation. I'm just like, at the end of the day, it's about profit.
Money.
But like, but I really hope that was the reason, because if so, that would make that would, yes, it would make sense. It would obviously lean into people who haven't been targeted in terms of from an entertainment perspective as much as they should. And also this kind of feeds into what they've been doing, for example, for What If season 2, they have that new heroine, Kaori, so which is an indigenous character. She's Mohawk. So I really hope that was the case. And if so, like, it was a smart move.
There seems to be some money there, because like Reservation Dogs,
I would think so.
To me, could have ended perfectly at the end of season 2. I thought it was a fucking perfect ending.
Culture?
Yeah.
Oh.
Even a culture that you've done your best to eliminate throughout these years.
Oh, woo!
Yeah. That's my thing. But, because there's still so many indigenous people and so many people who are from indigenous culture, I think there's still a lot, because that's what I think about. Reservation Dogs could have ended at season 2, but it got a season 3, and it allowed them to tell more stories and still end how they wanted to end, which is rare for a series, so
very rare.
I think there is some money and some, creative power there, and that's good to see. And having seen the first 3 episodes, goddamn, I just hope we're getting Alakwa. I just hope I pronounced this even close to right.
Alakwa or Alakwa. So I have to look this up.
Yeah,
Alakwa. It could be Alakwa though too.
It sounds like
how you.
Yeah, Alakwa sounds. But Alakwa, I don't know. Alakwa. All right, I'm gonna go with Alakwa for now. And I think she's doing it in a way that we really did not get to see during the Hawkeye series, in a way that I'm really happy to see here, because she's killing it. She's killing it being able to translate all her emotion without speaking at all, and then speaking through sign language, which something that I, as a viewer, have no clue what she's signing, but I can still get her emotion and everything and the intensity that she's bringing to that. That's a very fucking difficult thing to do. And she's doing it so well. So
I mean, it's difficult for able to actors to do it, let alone you know what I'm saying? Like, and first of all, I want to go deeper into that. We're talking about the characterization of the characterization that Alakwa is bringing to Echo, right? And she is likable. I think at the end of that's the number one thing for me. Do I like this character? There are so many established MCU characters that to this day I don't really rock with. Still don't really like Hawkeye like that. Okay, I'm still middling on what's her face, that says the sun is getting low, homeboy. Fucking
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Black Widow, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm still, and there's people who's like grown to love them. I'm like, no, I still don't feel it. Right away, I connected with a lot. Like right away, I like how she's delivering her lines. I like how she is being real, like the emotion, as you said, the emotion through her face when she cracks jokes too. Like she's not all serious. Everything's not all serious all the time. Like she does that. She kind of reminds me of an earth sign, right? She's very, very like dry, but it's dry humor, but it's actually funny, right? So I like that approach that she has to Echo and Echo's drive in this that you are able to very clearly see. So I think that's very well done by Laqua, and also she has the physicality for it too. Like you believe her when she's trying to like throw punches or pick up weapons or this and that. Like she's putting her body into it. And I like you mentioned the whole sign language aspect. Like that actually watching this makes me like, damn, because when I was younger, I started learning it a little bit, but obviously didn't stick with it. And I think I'm like, damn, I need to go get back into it. Like, especially if y'all on TikTok, there are so many creators on TikTok that be teaching us how to say like really stupid, ridiculous things, like, bald-headed bitch in sign language. But my thing is like, that's the culture, right? Like just having these conversations you would have with your homie, but in sign language, understand? Like that how it felt in terms of just being natural. Like it was just integrated because that is it. Understand? Like it wasn't like people try to say it's an agenda and is that like, no, this is just how, this is the life. This is the lifestyle. This is what it happens to be. Let's continue on with the story.
I think it's absolutely beautiful because it's like I'm just realizing that Echo does not talk, not in the literal sense. Like she does not make sound. And you really think like, yo, she's doing so much emoting and so much character work through her acting that you forget these things. It's like, oh, but that alien invasion.
And that's what I mean. It just happens to be. That's what I mean. Like, you're not sitting there like, oh, their sign language. Like, oh,
no.
Like, no, it's just part of, that's who she is.
And it's like, and you forget that she's signing, you forget that you're reading the words on the screen. You think that she has a voice in your head like any other character when they're speaking. It's really amazing work they're doing with that. That's, phenomenal. It's like that alien invasion movie that just came out where there's no words in it. And it wasn't through like most of the movie. I didn't even realize that no one's talking in this movie until like halfway through it when I'm like, oh shit, nobody's speaking in this movie. It's that same type of thing. When, when it's done well, you don't notice these things. You're reading the subtitles as if a character was speaking in another language and you don't think about it.
Yeah, and also for me, I'm a proponent of subtitles on everything.
Yeah,
because I just half the time I can't even understand what people saying. Or like the sound design is off, so like you can't even hear the person. So I turn the subtitles on everything. I'm that person.
Yeah.
Okay,
I do too on most things.
Yeah, I'm also a sub-dubbed when it comes to anime, so I'm used to that. So I like the fact that it felt. I know you are too, but I like the fact that it just felt natural, and I hope that it's continued on with other people who may not be used to that. And like, again, as a proponent of subtitles, I'm just hopeful that this would help.
Holy shit, y'all. This is going off on a slight tangent.
Closed caption subtitles.
But I just watched Blue Giant, the anime film from 2023 about jazz. Oh, Lord, it's up there with Across the Spider-Verse. It's one of the best films of the year. I watched it in subtitles. That's why I was thinking about it. And I was just thinking about how these actors are fucking killing it, and I can't understand a word they're saying, and I'm getting all the emotion from their acting. So when you get a chance to see Blue Giant, please do. It's, oh my God, phenomenal. Yeah.
All right. You gotta learn how to sign your name. I know how to sign my name. You need to learn how to sign.
I used to know that. I definitely knew Benjamin when I was younger. Yeah, I definitely learned that when I was younger. I cannot remember it now, but yeah, I used to know.
How is it? TATIANAKING. Yep. Nice. Yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Yeah, I used to know. I know there's something with that, but I'm not sure what it is, what part of it is, or any of that. So, got me. All right.
Cool. Overall thoughts, Ben, of the first 3 episodes.
Enjoyed it. When I realized that there's only 5, that's when I was like, uh-oh. That was my first thought.
Yeah. Not a lot of time.
Yeah. That was because when I'm watching, I'm like, okay, like the pilot I liked, I did not love. I was like, that's always my thing. I'm like, damn, how strong is this pilot? I enjoyed it a lot.
I thought it was decent. I thought it was
decent. I would say pretty good. Had a lot to do and did a lot of that pretty well.
Yes.
Just
did established a lot.
Established a lot, but didn't move a lot. And that was my thing. Where I was like, by the end of it, I was like, okay, I'll watch another because I got the first 3, so I'm gonna watch them. But I wasn't like, damn, I'm in love with this. By the end of the first 3, I was like, I'm really liking this show. And then I'm like, shit, there's only 2 more?
Yeah. I am concerned.
Yeah.
I felt the same as you. I was like, oh, I really like where this is going. This feels more fresh than what we've seen. And I'm like, oh shit, we don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Do we even have enough time to really get someplace?
Nah.
Because I still don't think we've moved too much. Like, we've moved a lot in characterization. I don't know if we moved enough in progression of
stories.
I don't want to say story. What's the word? Like, this the timeline of from point A to point B. I don't, and I think part of the problem is I don't know what point B is.
And
I can kind of usually see, and I can't see what point B is.
There's a lot of balls in the air right now, as they say. There's a lot of things being juggled. There's a lot of characters that I'm interested in. I'm very much interested in Echo and her relationship with her grandmother. Like, that is something I have huge interest in right now, and I want to see some resolvement to that.
That's huge. Her grandmother, her best friend Bonnie.
Yes.
All of these. I mean, and you could see, and I like when shows do that. I like when stories do that. And unfortunately, the Marvels didn't do this, where it's just like, okay, you have a conflict between 2, Carol and her adoptive niece, right? You have a clear conflict between 2 people, and it's like, are you going to address that? Because that is the elephant, the deer, the bear, all of the animals in the room, and are you going to say something about it? So that part, they're starting to, but it's also like, y'all don't have enough time to really flesh this out. And then it makes me ask, is this a test, right? Because it's only a mini series, right? And remember we said, who's Echo? Why Echo? Is this a test? Are we going to get more after, depending on how this is received?
I hope so. Now I'm also tight because I'm like, you could have just given us 9 off the break, 7 even. And because this is one, like, you've done too many, like, you gave us too much.
You started to weave together compelling story. You've given us compelling character, and it's so crazy. It's like when we are given non-compelling shit, they get 13 fucking episodes or 9 episodes, and that we just like, all right, who cares? And then when I finally get something where I'm like, oh, there's some seasoning right here, y'all get a sprinkle of it.
Or even something like Secret Invasion, which I can't remember how many episodes was. Or Loki season 2, which I stand by my review and I say was a lot of waste of the time. And I don't think you could have given that story they were telling more time. Because I felt like you wasted the time you had.
Yeah. But I felt like Loki season 2 could have been less episodes and still got to where it got.
It could have been 1 episode and got to where it got. Nowhere.
Actually, it could have been like a movie, like a mini movie.
A mini movie.
I think would have been impactful.
A long episode.
If it ended the way it ended, the same way, because the ending was beautiful. I think it could, if it was an hour and a half, 2-hour movie situation, an hour and a half is TV, right? I think they could have told that whole story within one go. They didn't. It had to be episodic. I don't think so, because there was a lot of things of wasted time in the episodes.
I think they could have done with doing it maybe over like 5 and just not
or
told.
Less episodes.
Yeah, or less, and not told the story they told. Right? Got to the ending they got to, but you got to get to that ending better to me, because it wasn't earned at all. It was just, oh, here we are. All right, cool. Anyway, moving on to Echo. I feel like that with Echo, with the first 3 episodes, a bit slow, but they are telling more stories that I care about, where I want to see the ending, where I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Unlike in Loki, where it's like, I don't give a shit about any of this. Oh, here's a great ending that really wasn't earned. There's some endings that I want to see earned here, and I'm not sure if they're going to have enough time to earn them.
If they do,
and that might be the fault of them, though, because they could have moved along quicker a little bit, maybe not had so many things going on. I don't know. I can't judge it on that.
But I don't know. How can you when you only have, like, I don't know. I didn't feel like it was slow.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like Echo had been slow here. I feel like, yes, there's some exposition and there's action and stuff. Like, is this and just to be clear, is this like a nonstop? It never stops. It's all action? No. There is the exposition here, but it's not to the point of where you're like, all right, nigga, I'm done listening to y'all. Can y'all do something? I feel like everything had a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were reasonings. There wasn't a I'm eating key lime pie scene where, and I use that meaning there's something where it's just like, this serves no purpose for story or character. It's just like the cinematographer liked the way it looked, so we kept it in here. Like, There's none of that in Echo.
Mm-mm.
At the same time, just like, how are we going to do this? Because there's so many compelling through lines that I don't know if we're going to be able to get there in 2 episodes. If they do it, it's a miracle.
I think, okay, one thing is Daredevil Born Again is coming back next year now. I think it got pushed back to 2025. And they're rejiggering the whole series because it was a complete mess from what they said. So it seems like Echo will be back in that. I feel like, because I feel like the reception to this is going to be pretty strong, where people are going to want to see more Echo. She's going to not stay in Tomahawk, Oklahoma forever. She's already been geared up in the first 3 episodes to, get your ass up out of town. And people are already telling her, they don't want her here because there's too many problems with you here.
For y'all, for those that don't know, her Maya, when she was a kid, she lived in, as he mentioned, Tomahawk, Oklahoma, and her father was in the streets. He was running the streets, as we've seen, and put their family in danger because he's continuing to run the streets. As we saw in Hawkeye, Hawkeye's based in New York. Mm-hmm. She ends up moving to New York with her father. Her father is still running the streets, still a problem, and as you see, he gets killed by Ronin at the time. Hawkeye, but Ronin. Clint, whatever the fuck this nigga's name is, as you want to call him, but she is in that world, right? She's kind of essentially growing up in that underworld. Her adoptive uncle, father, whatever you want to call him, father figure, Kingpin, is one of her, I hate to say it, but that's one of the people she'd be looking up to. Understand?
That's one of her father figures.
So she's in that world. She's in that underworld / situation. And then at the end of Hawkeye, you see that she starts learning the truth about what happened. Like, who did what happened to her father, the reasoning for why you see her get that fire silk press and then decide to go after Kingpin at the end, right? So and that's why what we talked about earlier, I said she's kind of an anti-hero at this point, because it's like she's not like, oh, now I'm an Avenger now. No, she ain't doing none of that other shit. She's still kind of on her own agenda and own wave. And she's doing things that may align with what other people want, but it's really about her right now. And I feel like everything she's doing is just really about her own personal intentions rather than what's good for everybody else.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. What she's doing, and the series takes place, I think, 5 months after the shooting of the Kingpin. And so when it starts off, Echo has been wounded. She's been shot. So she goes home to Tomahawk to get some help and get out of town, lay low, whatever. Then gets there and realizes she can still do some work against the Kingpin here and proceeds to do that work against the Kingpin. So that's where the series is taking place. So I think her battle with the Kingpin is obviously not going to be resolved in the series because Mans has to be around for Daredevil. So he's going to be there. And I think because of that, I think we might get some more resolve with all the Tomahawk storylines. So she can move back to New York. And then that way we can continue that storyline. So hopefully with these last 2 episodes, they can wrap that up, because I feel like that's what they're going to do. And I have faith there.
Yeah. I mentioned her physicality. How did you feel about like the fight scenes and the action in this show?
Loved it.
You loved it. Okay. I liked it, but I was a little iffy on some things.
Okay. Well, I know you had some questions too, and we'll get to that. So I definitely want to hear that right now. But I say I loved the initial fight scene when she's fighting with the cats and Daredevil busts in, because I love how she goes for the gat over and over again when Daredevil was trying to bust her ass.
But it's what we say. Yes. And my questions wasn't about the fights. But
okay.
That's what we say in all these types of fights. Like, we're sitting there like, just get the gun.
Yes.
Why are you reaching for the fucking stick? Get the gun.
Get the gun. And Shorty goes for the gat multiple times.
She's smart. I'm not gonna fuck with this. I don't know what this man is. I don't know if he's a real devil or he's just a man in a costume.
Yeah, that nigga is throwing that baton around. That shit is snapping back to him. That was another thing. That's like the second time, because we got to see it in She-Hulk, where he's really using the baton like in the comics, where it's retractable and that shit's slinging back to him and all kind of action. So yeah, I'm getting the gat.
And she's technically not all the way trained yet, right? So in terms of like she was taking martial arts and stuff when she was growing up. But my thing is, you also don't see, you see like a real quick montage. It's very quick, a quick montage of her, like when she decides to go with Kingpin, that she's all of a sudden, like she's learning their way of doing things.
I think by the time, because like he said, when you did much better, by the time she fights Daredevil, That's the thing. We don't see all of her training, but there is a lot of training with her. I think there's like assassin training with the hand, etc. Everything you want. She got the whole package. Kingpin was training her to be her, his murderer. So that's
he was training her more. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because there's even some shit, in this episode where I'm like, what the fuck? I guess, And that is all right. What I want to know, what were your reservations, about this? About
my reservation dogs about this. Well, it's not a reservation about the episode. I'm going to stick with the topic of like the fight scenes, right? Yep. So, like you, I just thought generally, I thought they were good, but there were, and I say good with a caveat because for me, in many fight scenes, there were sequences where I'm like, okay, that's amazing. There's a fight scene that happens, episode 3, where they're in a skating rink, and they're one of the best ways of fighting, and this is what I love when they do this in fighting games, is when you use the scenery around you as part of the fight. So you pick up things, and those things become weapons.
They fucked up that man's
whether they're
rink.
Weapons used against you or weapons you use against other people, fine. There's a scene where she, the game like Time Crisis or whatever, where they has the guns and she takes the guns out of the machine and they have long cables attached to it. She proceeds to use it as whips, right? That shit was fire. First of all, I'm just like, okay, that gets back to the original version of the character, which is about fighting styles, right? It's like not to say how did you know to pull that out, but like the fucking whips, that's a skill, right? Like I didn't even know that the bitch knew how to use whips like that, right? So that shit is crazy. That shit goes hard, and you could see that it's not just I'm just swinging. Like you could tell when someone's just on the fly trying to figure something out. She pulled that and used it with skill.
Yes,
went Ivy on her, understand? Like Soul Calibur level type stuff. So I was like, all right, cool. And you could see her. She's picking up different things. She's picking up fucking skee balls and going ham on people.
I was waiting for the skee balls, honestly.
Yeah, it's done with skill. It's like, oh, this woman is trained. Fine, fantastic. There are sequences where it's like things happen. I'm like, oh, that looks great. Then there are certain things in between. It will be good sequence sandwiched between things that looks kind of slow or like you're kind of fighting underwater a bit. So there were some things where I'm like, it kind of looks like you're practicing. Like I can see the whiffs, the purposeful, like I don't want to hit you in the face. Like, I'm pretending to punch you, And I actually did see some of that pretense of like, I didn't see it the first time with her fight with Daredevil, but when I watched the scene again, just stand alone, I was like, oh, wait.
I'm sure, That's the thing. And when you watch things more than once, with slow motion, with rewind, all those things, you're going to catch things that aren't there. I only watched these episodes one time through. I was like, okay, these are competent fight scenes. I'm not looking for,
I'm not looking for mistakes.
Perfection.
And I'm not looking for perfection. That's what I'm saying. I wasn't pausing or slow-moing. I was just watching it again. I watched a couple of these a few times. I watched these like certain scenes a couple times over. Like, oh, that was hard. I wanted to see it again. But then in second watch, I was like, oh, wait. I started noticing things.
Well, that's the thing. I think you're going to notice that with anything great. Like, when you get to the perfectionist, fight movies, you can watch them over and over again, and you're not really going to see a lot of the things. You're going to be like, oh, okay. Or if you see them, you're going to be like, God damn, that stunt actor really put his ass on the line right there. It's one of those things. Like when you watch Mad Max over, Fury Road over, it's like, Jesus Christ, these niggas were insane who made this film. When you watch, certain things, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I see it, But that's the thing. With this, I wasn't, I didn't watch it more than once, so it was cool. My more thing was certain shots, like even when they climb up on the water tower in the first episode, it just looks ridiculous CGI. And I'm like, damn, you couldn't find the real water tower?
Oh, like CGI to you?
Yeah, it is. It's like
I didn't notice that.
Oh, goddamn, the whole background is so CGI. I was like, you couldn't find the real water tower. When Biscuit is driving the truck after the train, his truck is completely CGI.
Oh, the truck is CGI.
Completely. And I'm like, damn, you couldn't just drive a truck through a field, but I get it. That's a dangerous stunt that takes time and money. So it's like, whatever for that type of stuff. Because I'm like, are you telling a good story around all this? I don't give a shit what the CGI really looks like if your story is great. Your story is good in this sense. I'm not going to say great so far. I'm going to say pretty good. Where I could ignore any of that and the fight scenes and whatever, I just don't care about. They're just more window,
They're window dress. Okay. So, okay. I mean, that's kind of fair. And it's also kind of like, also though, she's a melee character.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Like,
these are good enough though. This like,
It's good enough.
Yeah,
yes,
it's good enough. You know, that's what I'm saying. Daredevil jumped over that damn gate. That was good enough. Shorty went for the shotgun, and my man.
this gate.
When Shorty went for the shotgun, and my man dropped the whole shelf on her ass. That was
that was funny. That was funny, and I do like that. To me, you remember the other hang up we typically have when it comes to Marvel is about deciding whether or not someone's OP or whatever. Like. And that's why I say again about the fact that, yes, she's had some training, but not like Kingpin, secondhand in command type level training. Not yet. So she's kind of holding her own against Daredevil, but not enough because the nigga threw a shelf at her and that was the end of that.
Okay, but that's the thing. Like, I think she could have all the training in the world and Daredevil should still bust her ass. With no problem.
Daredevil's still gonna wash her.
Yeah,
anyway,
because he's fucking Daredevil. This nigga got radar sense.
And I like that. Yeah. I like that. It was like, look, man, at the end of the day, you may not be Daredevil level quite.
Yeah,
right?
I don't give a damn how much training you got. One-on-one, you get washed, homie, unless you got some type of power.
But Daredevil doesn't really have a power. He's just very in tune with his senses.
But he's also should be physically superhuman, like slightly
this
superhuman.
This version is not physically superhuman.
Man's unless they're going to change coming through the window.
That doesn't mean physically superhuman.
That shit, nigga.
Then
you try to catch
their Daredevil they've shown us so far has had no superhuman traits.
Nigga jumped over that gate. That shit is like, again.
He's very athletic.
But that's what I'm saying.
Hawkeye could jump over gates.
No. That nigga's busting his ass coming over that gate. That nigga's not making that gate. Not cleanly.
They
he
have
didn't
not
touch
shown,
it.
unless they change it. Listen, unless they change it for a Disney Plus version of Daredevil, they have not shown any of that.
That's what I'm saying. Though
that's just highly athletic.
Right there. But that is past Olympic level. An Olympic level athlete is not running up and no-handing that gate like my man did. So that's what I'm talking about. That's another level of athleticism.
So you're saying they're kind of like...
and that's what I wanted to see when he should be pushing it. It's like people like him, Captain America, should be... I mean, Captain America's, we've seen
Captain America's different.
That nigga's kicking niggas through tanks.
That's clearly superhuman. The serum.
He should be like right below Cap. You know what I mean? Because he fell into that goo, all that shit. Yeah. He shouldn't be like...
We're talking about comic book version. I'm talking about...
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Version. So that's why...
There's no goo?
He didn't fall into the goo in this. How'd he get blind?
Oh, you're talking about getting blind. Oh,
yeah, that's what gave him the radar.
I'm talking about getting...
What gave him the radar sense? Like, he has the radar sense. That's not something he developed.
But that's development. I guess that's the argument I'm having here. There's things he's developed by being... certain senses being taken away, so other things get heightened.
Yeah, and I think
what's superhuman? I think technically, you can argue it's superhuman.
Yeah, I think the Netflix version leaned into it more being developed. Where in the comics, it's like he develops it, but it's something it's not like every blind person has radar sense. Like
no,
this nigga got some other shit.
Yeah. Yes, but I guess. And again, we'll see how the MCU handles it more.
I think they're gonna handle it more.
Technically, it was always Marvel.
Yeah.
Let's see how Disney Plus handles it versus the Netflix version.
I think we're gonna see a little bit more of pushing it. Where he's gonna be doing, because like in the comics, my man is be swinging around like Spider-Man. Like that shit is superhuman. You can't do that shit. Normally, I don't give a. I mean,
why not? Fucking Black Widow was hanging around the T'Chari skateboard in the air and doing flips with her arm. Like, what do you mean?
True,
man?
indeed.
They've been doing that with the people who have no power.
But no, Black Widow is another one who is supposed to have had some shit put into her during that Red Room shit, where she's supposed to be, slightly above. She's not supposed to be just normal human. And even in Black Widow would have got splattered in a lot of situations. Had things gone wrong.
The lady got thrown off the cliff and was out.
Yeah, that was it. So that's what I'm saying. So that's it. He get thrown off. Daredevil get thrown off a cliff. It's it. Captain America get thrown off a cliff is probably it too.
If Clint or Natasha get popped in the head with a bullet,
it's it.
You're done.
Captain America too. True death. Same. He ain't healing from no bullet to the head.
Well, I still put Captain America in a different class.
Yeah, you definitely should. You definitely should. But bullets to the head is finisher all three of them.
It's a finisher no matter what. Not if he dodges it first. The nigga's fast.
Yeah, he can probably dodge it. He can
dodge it. I don't know if Natasha and Clint can dodge it.
Daredevil would have a better chance of dodging it too, but he probably...
Daredevil could probably dodge it. He'll hear that shit.
Yeah, definitely. He hearing the click, all that, but, same thing. He might catch it, and it's finishing him. If so. Echo as well.
Echo dodging.
It remains to be seen.
The ancestors. That's gonna be my answer for everything when it comes to Echo. The ancestors.
Sadly, a lot of our ancestors did not dodge bullets. So, yeah, I don't know about that one. Yeah. Cold truth here, folks. You know, that's what I'm here for.
No. All right. So what would we talk about? Just the fact of that fight. You say, you know, him one no-handed the cave.
Man,
and the fact that she could hold her own.
Yeah.
She could hold her own. She good. I mean,
but
I also feel like what ends up happening is like people like Echo can serve others so much. Maybe not Daredevil, but everyone else, because everyone else is dumb.
Yeah.
These are henchmen.
Yeah.
Right. The worst off that she has is Kingpin. Right. Is she gonna have to fight Kingpin? Kingpin's another one where they, and at least in the Netflix, and even in the Hawkeye series, they show that remember, Hawkeye, when he just started going crazy on everybody, I was like, wait a minute.
He took a lot of damage in that Hawkeye when they were leaning in.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think she's gonna really have a fight. I think that should be more of a mental, battle of words.
Mental, emotional conversation, fight.
And the other thing is like these superpowers, these ancestral powers we're talking about, she's only developing them in this series. Like, she doesn't have them when she's fighting those goons. When she's fighting Daredevil, she ain't got that shit. It's coming later in this series. So there might be a rematch for Daredevil down the line where she can actually put in some work. But right now, he's putting in that work on her.
But according to you, even if she put in work, she ain't gonna beat him.
No, I think
you said if she goes against Daredevil, she's gonna get.
I think with the power of the ancestors, she could put some work in on.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
I don't know why I keep laughing at the power of the ancestors, because it's also Black culture too. It's just like,
it's all
I hear my
culture.
Ancestors.
Yeah, man, our ancestors
I'm cooking,
are
they
always
telling me
there.
when to stop with the seasonings.
That's
how I know my stuff tastes good. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like,
it is, and so it's the power of the ancestors. I love it. I love to see it.
Yeah.
And so I think with the power of the ancestors, she could put in some work on Daredevil.
Speaking of ancestors,
his ancestors are all evil.
They're all colonizers.
Sorry.
The colonizers.
Even though, you know what? I think Daredevil might be Catholic Irish, and reading...
He is Catholic Irish.
Okay, well, reading up on the history, the Irish people have a relationship with the Choctaw people, and even because the Choctaw people helped the Irish people out during the potato famine, I want to say of 1918, when they were struggling, when they were already on the reservations and shit. They sent what it'd be like $5,000 today to the Irish people. So during COVID, Ireland sent back some help to the Choctaw Nation, and in 2018 established scholarships for Choctaw people to come over to Ireland and study.
That I never knew that, Benny.
I didn't look. None of this was knowledge.
The more
to me.
you know.
The more you know. I had no knowledge of any of this until I just read up on it. So actually, Daredevil's ancestors might have been down with Echo's ancestors.
He gave him the radar detection.
I ain't going that far. This man is not invited to any cookouts. Fuck out of here. I don't invite nobody to the cookout.
But listen, since you started talking about this, I would like you to go more into that, about how indigenous culture is intertwined in this story. Like, you've read up some things about the story, like even from the very beginning when they're showing like the first Choctaw and how she came out the cave, and then even when they're showing them playing that game that looks like lacrosse, right? Like,
yes.
Can you like where they are when they're playing that? Can you tell me more about what you've learned?
Okay, well, the original name of the game, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's referred to as stickball, modernly, but it is a native game, and it is where lacrosse comes from. So that is something that I think was played among multiple tribes, but definitely among the Choctaw. And Echo in the comics is of the Cheyenne Nation, but Echo was created by white authors. So there was a whole...
They mixed it in.
Yeah, they mixed in all kind of different Native American imagery and references. So when the creators, the showrunner of this series came along, they were like, we need to fix this up. One of the writers on the series is Choctaw Nation. So they were like, let's do Choctaw. And the Choctaw, from what I've read, their spirituality and the stories that they're being seen on Echo are all from, straight up from their own history and own stories. Like, their story is that the Choctaw people come from an underground cave and are let out. The mound that we see in these first 3 episodes when they're playing stickball in front of it. One more stickball reference. The stickball is actually used in Choctaw culture for disputes between different sides. Like, that's what we see in this episode.
That made sense. Yeah.
Because we see this in this episode where it's a serious thing, like win or lose, they could be banned or exiled off to
banished.
Yeah, so it's a serious thing. That mound that we see forgive my pronunciation, is the Naniwaya, which is a historical mound. It is still there to this day. It was larger in the past, but it's still a quite big, large mound, and that is where some of their stories say that the Choctaw people come from. That's where this cave comes from. Now, as far as there being a woman leading them out of the cave, I did not find that, but I really like that idea and how they're using that with Echo, so I have no problem with that because women are always leading people out of caves and, doing better things for the community. So I'm down with it.
Yeah. I love it from the cultural perspective and what I'm learning from it and will continue to learn about it, about this power that she has. I also think in terms of what we said earlier about updating her history, her comic history, and where her powers come from. Like we said, currently I don't know if it's today currently, but she was the holder of the Phoenix Force, right?
Yep.
So rather than do that, and again, we don't know what shit's going on with the X-Men right now. It's like, okay, let's just tap into her own culture and give her powers through that, right?
Yep.
Similarly to the change that they did with Miss Marvel, where, her light-based powers and then where the bangles come from and all this other stuff.
Yep.
Like, they changed that from what we know from the comics.
No, I really enjoy that. I really enjoy all the little, references and the history we're learning. And there is a line in these first 3 episodes that I really want to point out because it's something that I have had a theory about since I was younger, and I would love to see other people express it. When not her father, one of her ancestors is having a moment with her ancestor wants to join, what is their name? The Light, were they the Light Bring? No. Well, it's this group of frontier of Choctaw people who police their own people. And she wants to join them.
The Light Horsemen?
Light Horsemen, yes.
Yeah.
And her father is like, no, men are life takers, women are life bringers. And it's something that I've always thought about because I always had this theory that men create so many different ways to kill people because we're jealous of the fact that we can't create life. So we need to be in control of life. So that's why men are always creating more advanced ways to kill people because they cannot fathom a world where they are in control of this one thing. And that's why we're always fighting to control women's bodies because we're jealous of the fact. And now every man should jump in the comments and talk about how it takes 2 people to make a life, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, nigga, whatever. I don't want to hear that. You know what it is.
You can't carry the life alone.
You can't carry the life. And that miracle, that beauty is something that we can't experience. And because of that, it becomes this jealousy. So that's why men are out destroying everything all the time. And I was happy to see this show make that clear. Even though the dude was saying it like it's something to be honored, it's not. Men are life bringers. But even he had that regret. He was like, damn,
He did have the regret. And he saw his wrong ways. Yep. I do also like, and again, like these cultural windows we're getting, like I really hope we are able to have a conversation maybe with Sidney Friedland or anyone that's of the show so we can get some real perspective from people of the culture as well. Because someone that is Choctaw, because just certain windows we see, like when he says to her, you can't wear those braids. Like the men who are the warriors wear the braids, right? Like that's just not something, that's not like a regular hairstyle, right? It means something. And there's a reason and rules about it. So, and again, that crosses across cultures in terms of like there are certain things, whether it's hair or food or way of dress, that there is meaning behind it, okay? And this goes back to what we say about like appropriation and things like that. Like not saying you can't celebrate another culture or even participate in it, when you are invited to do so. It's like you have to understand that there is a reason and there is a history and there is a sacredness about certain actions or certain ways even people look. There is something important about it that you need to be mindful of or learn. And then not just kind of bulldoze over it as we see time and time again.
And then I love all the inclusion of the language in it where people are speaking. It's just like in Reservation Dogs where bare asses comes up again on this show, and I just love that phrase. And all these different phrases that even in English that native or indigenous people use that we might not use in our day-to-day lives, and to hear all this different stuff. I'm loving all that. So I love the fact that they were like, nah, let's clean this up from the comments right away and not worry about, okay, she was Cheyenne in the comments, now we're going to go a different route, something that we know, something that we can bring to the forefront, and how all these cultural references work so well with her character, like the story of the mound and the story of the people coming out, all these things we're seeing. I'm loving all of that. So Well done on that part.
Yeah. Is there any other things that like stood out to you in these episodes? Like, let's say like just in terms of where they're going. Like we talked about how we don't know how we want them to address the stories of the conflicts between the people closest to her. And they also, this is very Vin Diesel. They'll also make it about family in this show. So it's just like, family's wild important. Are we gonna have enough time to hit those points by the end of episode 5, especially where you have, Kingpin in the mix?
And I don't know if this is from the comics, because in the comics she does not, have one leg. She
a prosthetic leg.
Yeah, prosthetic leg. And I don't know if her mom dies in the comics, but that was such a superhero theme for me, where it's like, Jesus Christ, like parental drama. You cannot have it.
But listen, it's also Disney. You know what happens in every Disney movie? In every princess Disney movie, generally speaking, there is no mother.
It's just like, I guess it's just such an easy way to create
Bambi.
drama. Such an easy way. So
it's the Disney way. It's Big Nick.
Yeah. Money works. If it ain't, if it ain't broke. So.
Yeah. Or any other things that you like that we didn't touch on, like whether it was the music, other characters,
Vincent being back.
Vincent D'Onofrio. Listen, I love Vincent D'Onofrio. That man, an actor.
Yeah. I mean, people talk about Adventures of Babysitting when he plays Thor for a hot second, but my first memory of him is Full Metal Jacket, where he's terrifying. And ever since then, he's just been fantastic. There's never been a role.
He's fantastic. I mean, he's a great person. I don't know if he tweets like that anymore, but he was tweeting heavy during pandemic, and then past that, like when it comes to social issues, like he just says it what it is, and that's why I like people like say what you mean what you say. And he was always in it. He was, to me, on the right side of history, and also like I did actually get to speak with him a couple of years back for The Godfather of Harlem. I think it was season 1 or going into season 2, got to interview him. He's just a lovely human being in general.
Fantastic.
But again, just when he talks about his passion, and when he talks about his drive to building up characters. And remember, like way back when he was announced as Kingpin, immediately we were like, yes,
perfect.
Right. He got it. Everything about it. And you see that come back again, because in the first episode of Echo, like they actually put in scenes from Hawkeye, and when little Maya was coming up and they was developing that relationship, and then up until her as an adult, you see that, and the way he delivers his lines, and the way like you can see the furiousness and anger just right below the surface. It's just like you see a lake. And it looks kind of peaceful, but maybe a little bit of waves. You're like, yo, what the fuck is under there? Like you're like, it's all right, but it doesn't look 100% safe. That's how he delivers Kingpin. That's how Vincent delivers that character. You like, he seems all right, but something's not safe about him. Something is right there.
Something just ain't right.
Okay, so and to be able to have to deliver that. And it's a feeling, because he's not necessarily saying anything. He's just standing there, and you're like, hey, yo, he has an air about him in a way, like when he walks into the room, this is fucking Kingpin, right? This is Wilson Fisk.
Yeah.
And it also reminds me of, again, because I'm an animation person, every animation that I've seen of Wilson Fisk and how he presents, he's true to that. He's true to that, 100%.
And I mean, from the comics, someone who goes back with Wilson to the comics, I just always remember there was this run of Punisher when I was coming up. I can't remember who was writing it. I know Wilcie Portasio was one of the artists. And at one point, Punisher is trying to kill the Kingpin throughout this run. It's like a 6-issue storyline where he is like, I'm going to get this dude. He assembles a whole squad of cats. Most of them get taken out by Kingpin's assassins on the way. Punisher finally confronts Kingpin in his tower. And this line is just one of my favorite lines in all the comics and all of history. Punisher catches them, they're fighting hand to hand. And Kingpin is like, you're like a terrier chasing a lion. What happens when you catch the lion? And that line is
Don't get ate.
And that's what happens to Kingpin. Serves this nigga in hand-to-hand combat and is about to snap his neck with no problem. And Punisher only gets saved by somebody else. And You know, so that line, that represents a kingpin to me. You know, this lion and everybody else is just a little dog yapping at his heels. And that's how Vincent brings him across. And the other thing I'll say is like, this really embodies that line when they say there's no small parts. Because we know Kingpin's a huge role. But in this series so far, it's just, you know, a couple of scenes. But the shadow that he casts over everything with those couple of scenes is incredible. Absolute finest work.
Before we get to our like final like grade or thoughts so far, like, is there anything you did not like?
There was some shit when Echo constructs that gun out of nowhere in, you know, she's suddenly an engineer and it had a laser sight. I'm like, where the fuck? Like, I get, you know, she used some bowling equipment, but the laser sight, I'm like, lasers?
I think, yeah. So, he's referring to a scene where, like, she's basically, not incapacitated, what's the word? She's basically in prison, kind of, sort of. She's locked up, kind of, sort of. And with just the random things around her. And that's why I was like, is this anywhere in the comics? Or is there some source to any of this? It's just like, she's just that damn good as an engineer. She could just build random shit. Like, I was like, she's like Torbjorn. I'm like, what is this?
That's where I go to
Overwatch all of a sudden.
That's where I go to the Kingpin training. That's why I was saying, no, maybe she's fully trained at this point. You know, he's trained her for every situation.
You saw what she built for the train. I won't say what it was, but you saw what she built that she put on the train. So.
Yep. Yeah, so I think at this point we've seen her. Out of nothing. Yeah, she's been fully trained. She's MacGyvering it up whenever she needs to. So that was a little bit of a stretch for me, but that was just like a few other stretches. You know, I don't want to say there's another stretch on that train sequence where I was like, okay, why not? You know. Yep. You know, there's a few things like that where I'm like, but it doesn't make me like, nah.
It doesn't make you like have a dramatic takeaway from the negative takeaway.
No, it's just like, all right, I get it. You know, this is a superhero show. You know.
Okay. So it's, you could write it off. All right, fine. I had mentioned already how I just said some of the fighting could I saw some maybe after second watches, I was like, I saw some flaws that I didn't necessarily enjoy, but then they were sandwiched in between really good sequences. The other thing, this was the question that I said I had for you, was, as mentioned, she's more of an anti-hero. So like, when she ends, remember, when she ended Hawkeye and goes into episode 1 of Echo, you see she's basically getting her revenge, right? Yep. She's just like, she finds out, you know, Wilson Fisk he's the one behind her father's death. When you really think about it, she got to go after him, yada, yada, yada. All right, so you punished him, fine. Then she feels like, I want to hit him where it hurts. Okay, fine. Why then? Then she said something along the lines of she wants to be the queen pin. And that's when I had my question, because I was like, well, where is this coming from and why? Just because?
She's about that life. You know,
but why? What is the motivation?
Because she's
because that's all you know?
That's all she knows. Yeah, what is it? You know, like, what else she going to do at this point? She has murdered people her whole life. You know, might as well be the boss and murder people she's tired of getting told to murder. You know, now she wants to tell other people to murder.
I just thought you wanted some peace. Because you had said, listen, when she was young, when she at first, like when she was, she was older, younger. She was older, younger. And remember, Fisk was telling her, you know, we found out when he was still playing her. He's like, we found out about your father's killer. And she said to him, he's mine, right? Yep. Like, that was her main goal. And then the main goal got done, or, you know, so we think. And then,
well, she finds out the main goal ain't done,
but that's after the fact. But I'm like, she found out the main goal wasn't done after the fact.
Yeah. Well, then she's like, now, you know, the main goal is to take what was his.
I don't know.
I get it.
I don't know if I'm 100% sold on why she wants to take over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see much of an alternative for her. You know, that's the other thing. She ain't going to college. You know, she ain't getting a 9 to 5.
She's not going to Howard.
Nah, sadly, we could use her, but nah. You know, she's about that life at this point. You know?
Okay.
You know?
All right.
When a good girl gone, she gone forever. Jay-Z told you, folks. You know?
When he said, I pray for the fact I did you wrong forever.
That's Kingpin. Song cry right there.
Yeah, man. That song cry. Shit, you're right. So it's not necessarily something I did not like, just something I had a question about.
I feel you.
So let's wrap up, Ben.
Yep.
What's your grade? Again, we've only seen, it's only 5 episodes, it's a miniseries, but we've seen episodes 1 to 3. What do you grade this series so far?
Solid B.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Solid B.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Because it's
Why?
Why? Because we're still in the golden age of television to me, and there's stuff that is just absolutely out of control, fantastic. Things like Reservation Dogs, where I would give it A plus. WandaVision, I think, was still one of the better Marvel series so far, and I would give that like an A. I would give this, a solid B. It's leaning towards B plus, yeah. Depending on how it wraps up, it could be B plus, could be an A by the time it wraps up.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I do think it's compelling story. Like, it's actually interesting. It's not, what was this last series that I could not stand?
Secret Invasion?
It's not Secret Invasion. It's not She-Hulk. And again, She-Hulk had good things and terrible things on it. It's one of the more compelling series behind Miss Marvel, I would say.
Yeah.
The Miss Marvel TV series.
And
obviously in a different zone completely. Like, this is on the other side of the spectrum when we talk about tone and approach, obviously, you know, with it being an adult, with it being violent, and with it being this and that. And dark. It is darker for sure. But just in terms of well done, well written, so far, I see it.
Yeah, and for different reasons, I think both it and Miss Marvel are great. You know, that's saying, like, I think this is great, and I think Miss Marvel is great, but like you said, Miss Marvel's tone is so completely different.
Completely.
This is on a whole nother scale, but I enjoy them both for what they are, and I think that they're both doing great and both bringing cultures that we don't get to see all the time on screen to the forefront, which I enjoy them both for. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I am giving this a thumbs up. I recommend you watch Echo when it drops. It drops January 9th. All 5 episodes dropping at once. So if you have time, binge it. If you don't, that's okay. Watch it, you know, throughout the week, because people are going to spoil everything for you.
I'm definitely peeping them
9:01 or whenever, right? Whenever everything comes out. But we recommend it. Definitely watch it. Well done. This is a bright side of the MCU and a plus for Disney Plus. We hope that everything going forward is at least on that level. Daredevil. So please.
Oof.
And it has mad episodes.
As of now, we'll see, you know, because they said they're rewriting it completely, because the original idea or what they went with so far was like some goofy courtroom drama shit, and I don't know why they would think that. I mean, Daredevil has
She-Hulk was goofy.
Yeah,
like, come on, bro.
And Daredevil's had some of those in his run. Like, there's a run by Mark Waid, which is really lighthearted, but still Daredevil, and it's one of my favorite runs because he fights more like the super powered individuals and stuff, and isn't just constantly getting beat up. So they could do that, and I'd be happy. But I would like to see some of this go through with it too. You know, I'd like to see, and I know the people who are fans of Netflix want to see that tone.
I want to see that tone.
I want to see that tone combined with the tone we saw. I want to see him jumping over gates and shit.
Okay. I don't know why you keep saying that, but okay.
That shit was hard, nigga. That nigga no-handed that hoe.
I just really desperately want Echo to stick this landing, because this is going to be the defining point. And as I said earlier, like, is this a test? Are we going to get more after, depending on the reception? So I really hope this works. At the end of the day, I do think they made something beautiful. I'm happy that the Choctaw peoples are being represented. I'm happy that indigenous peoples are up and through this project. And I really do hope that they get the shine they deserve.
Word up.
Yep.
All right, y'all. As always, make sure you are following us, me at DJ Ben Amin, Tatiana King, on all different social medias. We're popping right now on Threads, so make sure you follow us over there as well. Thank you for following us on YouTube, on Twitch, where you can see all our visuals. That's twitch.tv/ForAllNerds. Hit me up on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/DJ Ben Amin, doing weekly DJ sets, probably twice weekly right now. Got one every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you check that out. What else? We got a lot of things going on for 2024. ForAllNerds.com for all our merch right now is undergoing a revitalization, so that'll be right back very soon. We'll let you know when you can get your hands on the merch again. Anything else?
Quick PSA about that.
Yep.
We have, again, Benami and I are not the ones sitting there packing the shirts. At the same time, we had a team that we are, as you mentioned, we're revamping things, and we're trying to make the system and the process better. We're trying to make it faster and accurate. So for those who got their merch, no issues, everything sunshine and rainbows, I'm happy. For those who may not have the best of experience, deeply apologize, and that we are here to improve the experience. We also please humbly request that you provide us with grace. We know that our people behind the scenes have been trying to, for whatever, anything that's happened, good or bad, we've always wanted to make everyone have a good experience or try to improve or fix experiences. So we appreciate you. Please don't send us angry DMs. People are trying to fix things for you. Okay. If there's anybody still left out there, I think we cleared everybody. But again, we appreciate all of the business that we've had so far. We appreciate all the customers and all the support. And to everyone who is there, like, yo, I still need to get my merch. Your time is coming. Okay. So very soon you're going to have a nice, updated, upgraded experience. And we appreciate you.
Word up. And with that, we'll be out. We'll probably be back to review all of Echo, do an all-star review, gather up some folks and talk about all 5 episodes. So we'll be back with that. We got a lot of other stuff. Make sure you check out our latest episode that just dropped before this one, featuring Leslie Walker, where we discuss our trip to the Blacksonian.
The Blacksonian.
Yes.
And we get you behind the scenes information about what it takes to run a museum. I think this is one of my favorite episodes because I always love understanding how things actually work. Like, how do things get into the museum? How do they pick the items? Are we seeing everything that they have? Is there more, etc.? And also to hear from Leslie, who has essentially dedicated his life to this, right? And has the training and the education on the arts and society and things like that. So if you ever even thought of having that, like, hey, I think I want to go into that, like, especially the younger people who listen to us, if you ever thought like, oh, I think that would be a cool job, I wonder how I get involved, this is the episode you want to listen to.
Word
up. For
up.
sure.
And shout out to my brother, rest in peace, to Combat Jack, because like he always said, the Combat Jack show, and by extension, the ForAllNerds show, is all about showing people the keys to success and different paths to success. So I love to see a Black person like Leslie doing this path, and we are illustrating a way that you can also follow their path and learn about, different ways to success in this life. So success. Yeah. Say that 5 times fast.
Success.
I obviously can't.
Love y'all. Peace.
Peace.
Hey, what's up, internets and the fan fam? This is Tatiana King for ForAllNerds, and I want to thank you so much for listening and watching the ForAllNerds. Make sure you like and subscribe to us only on YouTube.